Stop right here and imagine having everything the world could offer: success, fame, power, and the illusion of control. Yet losing the one soul who ever saw the real you. Ryan Cross, the celebrated millionaire CEO of Cross Dynamics, believed love was just a distraction, a weakness that made strong men fall. He built his empire from sleepless nights, expensive suits, and empty victories. Every smile was calculated, every word a negotiation. When his marriage with Emily began to crumble under the weight of his ambition, Ryan convinced himself he was doing the right thing. He told her she never truly understood him, that emotions had no place in his world. The night he left, the city lights glittered like trophies outside his penthouse window, and he promised himself he would never look back. But time is cruel. 3 years later, standing in the rain outside a small coffee shop, he saw a woman with the same gentle eyes he had tried so hard to forget. Her hair was tied back, her clothes simple, her presence quiet. But beside her stood a little boy, barely 3 years old. The child held her hand tightly, laughing at something she said, his voice light and full of life. When the boy turned, Ryan's breath caught in his throat. Those eyes, deep brown, warm, familiar, were his own. The air left his lungs. For the first time in years, the man who had conquered boardrooms and silenced rivals couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. His empire, his pride, his cold certainty, all of it began to crumble with one innocent look. 3 years earlier, Ryan's life had been a whirlwind of ambition and pride. He was the man everyone admired, sharp, confident, untouchable. He walked into every meeting like he owned the world, and in many ways he did. But what he failed to see was that the woman waiting at home was quietly fading from his world. Emily had been his anchor when he was nobody, the one who believed in him before the headlines did. She celebrated his first small deal, stayed awake through his long nights, and whispered hope into his failures. Yet, as his success grew, her voice became softer, almost lost beneath the noise of his world. The more she tried to reach him, the further he drifted. When she told him she missed the man who laughed freely, he replied coldly, "That man was weak." Those words became the knife that ended everything. The day he left, the air between them was heavy with silence. She didn't argue, didn't cry. She only said, "I hope one day you find what all your money can't buy." He walked away feeling powerful, convincing himself that love was a luxury he could no longer afford. But even as the elevator doors closed, something inside him trembled. He ignored it, burying himself in meetings, projects, and celebrations, surrounded by people who admired his success but never truly saw him. Yet at night, when the noise faded and the city lights dimmed, he would glance at the empty side of the bed and feel a quiet ache that no achievement could silence. 3 years later, Ryan Cross stood at the peak of everything he had once dreamed of. His name echoed through magazines, investors waited for his approval, and his company had become a global empire built on precision and pride. Yet, every night when the meetings ended and the applause faded, the silence in his penthouse grew louder. He had mastered success, but he could not master peace. He often told himself that loneliness was the price of greatness, but deep down, he knew it was the punishment for his choices. He would scroll through his phone, sometimes opening old photos of Emily he had never deleted. In those pictures, her eyes held warmth he had not seen since. He would lock the phone, pretending it meant nothing, but his reflection in the glass always betrayed him. One morning, after another sleepless night, he decided to take a different route to the office. The city was waking up, the streets still quiet. As the car slowed near a small coffee shop, his gaze caught something familiar. A woman sitting by the window, her hair falling in soft waves, her smile faint but real. Time seemed to stop. Ryan's chest tightened as recognition hit him. Emily. She looked different, older maybe, but stronger, as if life had shaped her into someone he could no longer touch. And then he saw a small boy run up to her, laughing, his tiny hands clutching a cup of milk. The boy turned, and Ryan's heart froze. Those eyes, that same deep brown glow, were mirrors of his own. For the first time in years, the man who controlled everything felt utterly powerless. The sound of the city around him faded as Ryan stood frozen on the sidewalk, staring through the glass of that small cafe. Every instinct told him to walk away, to leave before his carefully built world cracked apart. But something inside him, something long buried under pride, refused to move. He opened the door and stepped inside. The bell above it chimed softly, but to him it sounded like the toll of truth. Emily looked up immediately, her hand instinctively tightening around the boy's shoulder. For a second, neither of them spoke. Time stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Ryan's throat went dry as the boy looked at him curiously, those familiar eyes blinking with innocent wonder. "Emily," he whispered, unsure if he even had the right to say her name. Her expression didn't change. She looked calm, almost too calm, as if she had practiced this moment in her mind for years. "Ryan," she said quietly, her voice steady but distant. He tried to speak, but no words came. Instead, he looked at the boy again. "He's yours?" The question hung in the air like a secret that could no longer stay hidden. Emily's gaze softened, and she nodded once. "His name is Noah." The sound of it broke something inside Ryan. He knelt slowly, meeting the boy's eyes, trying to smile, though his heart felt like it was shattering. "Hi, Noah," he said gently. The boy smiled back, the same small half-smile Ryan once had as a child. In that moment, everything he had built, his fortune, his empire, his pride, meant nothing. He wasn't a CEO anymore. He was just a man looking at the life he could have had, and the love he had thrown away. The cafe felt smaller now, as if the air itself had thickened with everything left unsaid. Ryan stood there, the hum of chatter around him fading into a blur, while his gaze stayed locked on the little boy who unknowingly carried the weight of his past mistakes. His heart pounded in his chest, not with power or ambition this time, but with fear. Fear of what he had lost and what he might never regain. Emily gently guided Noah's hand toward the counter, her calm composure only deepening Ryan's guilt. He finally spoke, his voice quiet and rough. "Why didn't you tell me?" She turned, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of strength and pain. "Because when you walked out, Ryan, you made it very clear that your world had no place for me. I couldn't imagine it having room for him." Her words hit harder than any boardroom loss ever had. He opened his mouth to defend himself, but every excuse dissolved before it could form. He remembered how coldly he had left, how he'd believed cutting ties meant freedom. Yet standing here, watching Noah's small fingers tap at the counter impatiently, Ryan realized freedom had never felt this heavy. "I didn't know," he said again, his voice breaking. "I didn't even think." "That's the problem. Emily interrupted softly. You never thought love could be more powerful than success. The words silenced him completely. For years, he'd chased validation from headlines, but not once had he earned forgiveness from the person who mattered most. As Noah ran back to Emily with his small cup of milk, Ryan saw his reflection in the boy's eyes. Proof that the past could not be erased, only faced. And for the first time, he wanted to stop running from it. Ryan sat down at a nearby table, his palms pressed together, every muscle in his body tense as if he were standing before the most important deal of his life. But this time, the stakes were different. It wasn't about profit or power. It was about something far greater. Forgiveness. Emily hesitated for a moment, uncertain whether to sit or walk away. But when Noah tugged at her hand and whispered something that made her smile, she sighed softly and joined him. The silence between them was heavy but not hostile, just full of unspoken years. I missed everything, Ryan said quietly, his voice trembling with the weight of truth. His first words, his first steps, all because I was too proud to see what really mattered. Emily looked down at her coffee, her fingers tracing the rim of the cup. You can't rewrite the past, Ryan, she said softly. But maybe you can decide what you do with the time that's left. Her words struck him deeper than any lesson life had ever taught. For the first time, he didn't want to control the outcome. He wanted to earn it. I don't expect forgiveness, he said, his voice raw. I just want the chance to know him, and to prove that I can be better than I was. Emily studied him carefully, her eyes searching for sincerity, and for the first time, she found it. Noah looked up at him curiously and reached out his small hand. Ryan froze, then gently took it, his heart pounding with emotion he had long forgotten how to feel. That simple touch broke years of silence. In that single moment, Ryan Cross, the man who once thought he had everything, realized he had never truly lived until now. The road ahead would be long, uncertain, and filled with the hard work of healing. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid to begin.